Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to another episode of our ProRevenge. In today's episode, you'll hear 7 ProRevenge stories. The first story features an op who gets sweet, satisfying revenge on her awful district inspector. In the second story, an op teaches his friend why you should never prank call anybody. And the third story is a chilling revenge that teaches a well-deserved lesson. My friends, I hope you stay for the stories today and hit that subscribe button for future ProRevenge tales. If you enjoy this kind of content, let's dive in. When I was younger, I worked at a major donut shop chain in Canada. There are more of these shops than McDonald's there, and everyone goes there. It's practically a cult. I worked at a corporate store that trained new franchisees in addition to our regular operations. I used to train franchisees on how to operate the back-end baking shift from 4 in the morning until noon. I loved my work. I loved meeting new people, showing them the process, and working for my company. I also loved my 2 managers, and it was great, except when it came to my inspector. Let's call her Mary. Mary was a district inspector, and she had it out for all of us. Our staff would see her red car in the parking lot and scramble to tidy up. She loved coming in when we were slammed, with a lineup out the door, tables needing cleaning, donuts flying off the racks, and everyone just trying to keep up. People would panic when they saw her car pull up. She was slim, with big curly orange hair and a mean streak. As an in-house inspector working for corporate, she seemed to really enjoy her job of marking faults and handing her reports to her managers to file. She enjoyed her work until she came into the kitchen when I was working, which was most days. She hated it when I was there because I had to train people all the time. I kept a clean kitchen with everything stocked, as it needed to be ready for the next shift where I trained franchisees. The kitchen was always in great shape because cleaning, refilling, prepping, and operating it to code was what I did with the franchisees while training them. It more or less took care of itself. It also didn't hurt that I was a perfectionist, and Mary did not seem to like that at all. She would find any excuse to dock me points. I think she was a bit obsessed with it. She went to great lengths to catch me messing up. Even my managers, who were regularly rotated through other stores, felt bad for me. They said they'd never seen that happen to anyone else like that. Mary would get irritated when she couldn't find much to report because she never wanted to give a perfect pass. Oh, she would look. She would pull out heavy, old, out-of-circulation mixers from the bottom shelves and run her hands along the back to check for dust. I wiped those regularly, so it must have driven her crazy. She would always dock me points for my shoes. My shoes were dark navy, not black, and therefore were not uniform compliant. I couldn't afford to buy new shoes while making minimum wage. And every time she visited, she would condescendingly say, "Oh my goodness, those shoes are awful. You should know better than to wear those to work." She'd point them out, imply I was lucky she didn't pursue it further, dock me the points, and drop off the paperwork to my managers with a smug smile. Bonus points if she could find a cobweb. That would be in the report too. I hated her. She knew how proud I was and how seriously I took my job, and she just couldn't let me have that. I was confused by it because I had no negative history with her. I really took it personally. At the time, I was the type of person who would beat myself up over things and was very critical of myself, so this added fuel to the fire. Maybe she felt giving a perfect score would make her look bad. I'll never know. At that time, I was also taking Taekwondo. I had an athletic background when I started, so I advanced quickly and was competing early for my belt level. During class, we would do warm-ups, patterns, and finish by partnering up to practice holds, throws, self-defense, sparring, and more. Occasionally, when new students wanted to try a class, this is where they would join so they could interact with other students. We didn't rubberneck to see who came in. Our instructor would just announce it and choose someone to pair with them. Many students didn't like partnering with newbies because it was boring. Although I preferred training with someone more advanced, I didn't mind being patient with a new student. One day my instructor welcomed Mary to the class and directed me to pair up with her. I turned around and holy moly, there she was. I think we both had the same thought, oh my gosh, is this really happening right now? It was surreal, like I was dreaming. I just kept staring at her thinking, oh my goodness. During class, I got to show her how to defend against an attack from the rear. You drop down to lower your center of gravity, strike the assailant in the stomach with rear elbows, grab their arm, and use your leverage to flip them over your shoulder onto their back on the ground in front of you. Then you kneel on them to pin them while striking them in the solar plexus. I demonstrated that to her over and over again. I might add that I killed her with kindness while doing so, not because it was enjoyable to witness, but because I'm not the type to be mean in that situation. I encouraged her to demonstrate it on me too, and would correct her by showing her the entire routine again on her. I'd say things like, "Almost got it, Mary. You just need to lower yourself like this so you can flip the attacker like this," and wham, on her back again. That went on for a good 30 minutes, but I guarantee it felt longer for her. The day after, I ran into work screaming, "You'll never believe what happened last night." My managers were giddy like children, and it was high fives all around. Mary came back to a few more classes, which was shocking. My instructor paired us every time. I think he saw how enthusiastic and patient I was with her and wanted to foster that relationship. Every morning after Taekwondo, my managers would want updates immediately, asking things like, "How was it? Tell me about it. What did you do to her this time? Do an impression of her. Show me what her face was like." Mary dropped out after about 4 weeks, maybe less. It was a grand effort, Mary. I rarely saw her at my work anymore. I think she timed her visits around my shift or during my break. Sometimes I thought I saw her car driving out of the parking lot, and my managers would confirm it was her. My report would just be left on the table in the back, and she never docked me points again. It was perfect. I absolutely loved this story so much. If I were Mary and saw Op in that class, I would have turned right around and left. Imagine getting to take down a lousy boss in a Taekwondo class. Some people daydream about this stuff while at work, and OP got to live it. Next story. 10 years ago, a friend of mine prank called me several times in my office over the course of a day. I decided in that moment that 1, this would not stand, and 2, rather than entering a long, drawn-out prank war, I would use the nuclear option and end it immediately. My friend Mike was a well-known local bartender and was very much enjoying single life at the time, facts I knew I could take advantage of. Soon a plan began to form. I would have him served with a fake paternity suit while he was working at the bar. I compiled a ton of free online legal documents, not just for the paternity suit but also income disclosure forms, statements of parental rights, and suggested visitation schedules pending demonstrable proof of sobriety. I filled out all the forms, then smeared what looked like date received stamps as proof they'd been filed and ran copies to make those stamps even less legible. From there, I crafted a backstory to be included in a cover letter from the fictional mother's fake law firm. The mother was an Irish exchange student visiting the area the previous summer. She'd only been with Mike, so she knew the baby, Eliza, was his. The cover letter encouraged Mike to call her during regular office hours to discuss arranging a DNA test to confirm paternity. By the end, the paperwork was between 20 and 25 pages. I enlisted another friend, not known by Mike, to serve the documents and instructed him to do so around 10 at night on a Saturday evening. I told him to keep the interaction simple. I wasn't able to be by the back bar because I knew I'd be laughing too hard, but based on eyewitness reports it played out like this. The friend said, "Are you Mike?" Mike replied, "Yes." My friend dropped the folder on the bar and Mike asked, "What's that?" My friend said, "Paternity suit. You've been served." And he turned around and immediately walked out of the bar. Mike read through the packet, shakily poured himself several drinks, and then ran to the bar owner to ask what to do. He also called the number on the letterhead, but sadly didn't leave a voicemail. After a solid 10 minutes of intense psychological revenge, the owner finally told Mike he should closely read the last page of the packet. On it, in size 2 font, it read, "Go get lost, Mike." At that point, Mike ran to the front door and punched me in the chest. Several months later, Mike was on a trip across the country. He had left his car at home with his mom, who generously had it washed for him. For some reason, Mike kept the paternity suit paperwork in the driver's side door. During the car wash, his mother found it, read the entire thing, and then called him sobbing in the middle of the night, asking why he hadn't told her about her illegitimate Irish granddaughter. Next story. Okay, so my cousin is a prankster. She loves telling jokes, and one of her favorite pranks is during the holidays when she tells me that my uncle, her dad, is coming to pick me up. If I'm being honest, my uncle is not a nice person. He yells at me and everyone for everything, lies about people to make them look bad and himself look good, and makes fun of me for being overweight. He's verbally abusive, and it's gotten to the point where I've pretty much gray-rocked him, which is basically no contact. So, on to the prank. Her favorite prank is telling me that he's coming to pick me up to take me to family gatherings, which I usually avoid if he's there. 2 hours in the car with him? That's literally torture. A couple of weeks ago she lied and told me he called and was going to pick me up for my birthday. I felt like I was having a panic attack. I remember crying, hyperventilating, and pacing back and forth to try to figure out a way out of it. Yes, Visiting him is just that bad." She started laughing, and I told her, "That's not funny." She knows how I feel about that man, and she said, "Don't you feel better now that you know he's not actually coming?" I haven't forgotten that. It's been 2 weeks, and I've had enough of that prank. I wanted to prank her to get her back, and I remembered her biggest fear, clowns. She's been terrified of clowns since she was a kid. So I had a friend who's over 6 feet tall dress up in a creepy clown suit. I told her I got a free dinner for 2 coupon for my birthday to her favorite restaurant and wanted to share it to bait her. We left, and I had my clown in place. The plan was to stop in the middle of this old rural road and stop the car at a specific spot where my friend was hiding. Everything went according to plan. My friend parked his old junker car in a ditch on the side of the road, and I stopped to say we needed to check it out to see if they needed help. While she's looking in it and around for the owner, I sneak back to my car. My clown ran out of an old barn and straight for us. She saw him, froze, and started screaming. She ran back to my car, but I sped off before she could get in. I didn't abandon her, I just drove over a hill where she couldn't see me. She tried running with the clown chasing her, screaming for help. He caught up to her, and she got on her knees and started crying. He then laughed and revealed it was a joke. I drove back and started laughing with him. She told me it wasn't funny, and I repeated what she had told me. "Don't you feel better now that he's not a crazy clown?" She screamed and yelled the whole car ride at me and said I could have scared her to death. I told her that's how I feel when she tells me about my uncle. Opie's uncle must be a horrible person for her to get such bad anxiety and break down into tears at the thought of hanging out with him. The clown prank was absolutely perfect. Next story. I come from a really small town. Think of the smallest, most uneventful city where nothing ever happens, and my hometown is even quieter than that. Picture half a mile between neighbors, a single main street downtown, 1 department store, and 1 movie theater. You get the gist. My town was the kind of place where everyone attends church every Sunday, everyone knows everyone else, or at least their business, and the whole city is invested in the fortunes of the high school football team. It's that sort of place, with a graduating class of 60, not because the senior class was unintelligent, but because it was just a tiny high school. I didn't really fit in at school and was kind of a loner by choice. I cringe about it now that I'm in my late 20s, but I was a wannabe emo goth rocker. I still got invited to parties with other kids, not because they necessarily liked me, but because there just weren't many people to invite. In high school, I worked at a private burger place that competed, mostly unsuccessfully, against the town's single-chain fast food restaurant. With boredom everywhere, you can imagine the sensation Miss Amber Fontaine caused when the high school hired her to be the 11th and 12th grade English teacher. Miss Fontaine was of French descent. She had moved to America in her late teens to attend college in New York. She was only 24 and very beautiful. She spoke perfect English but did so with a pleasant accent. Naturally, all the guys loved her. She seemed oblivious to all the attention, however, and just stuck to her job. We didn't know much about her. She mostly kept to herself, and nobody ever saw her hanging out with any men in town. It wasn't for lack of men trying. It soon became clear that she wasn't interested in dating any of the men the town had to offer. Much later, I found out she had taken the job in our small town to gain experience, with the future goal of becoming a college professor in a big city, a sort of 2-year plan. Obviously, I had a crush on her, we all did. It was, and still is, a small church-going town, so everyone was respectful, and nobody acted out or harassed her. As guys, we'd just talk among ourselves about how attractive she was. Typical locker-room chatter that teenage boys engage in, but that was it. My one real out-of-school experience with Miss Fontaine was when she stopped by the burger joint where I worked and saw me there. She told me I had a nice smile and wished I smiled more because in school, I was always frowning. Because I was in my emo everything's awful phase. The following Monday at school, she smiled at me in the hall, and I smiled back. She chuckled and said, "You're learning, but not in a condescending or patronizing way, just a fun, kidding way." After that, I exchanged a smile with her every time, and that was the extent of my great high school romance with Miss Fontaine. Things changed the following year, though. I was 18 and still working at the burger joint when Miss Fontaine came by the restaurant. She said, "Oh, hey, OP," and asked with genuine seriousness if I was going to college. I told her the truth. I was working with my band, where I was the main vocalist and guitarist. Our band's only other members were Jerry, the bassist, and Gabe, the drummer. Both were just out of high school and, like me, had no plans to attend college. Gabe worked at the same burger joint as me, while Jerry, who had been one of my best friends in high school, ironically worked at the chain fast food restaurant down the street from mine. Our lives at that time revolved around wasting our youth, skateboarding, messing around, and playing in our punk band. Small-town stuff. Miss Fontaine told me that, now in her second year of teaching, she had a better sense of how to do things. We continued chatting a bit, and she said she'd see me around. A few days later, she came into the restaurant again, and we got to talking. She asked if I'd like to go to a movie. I could tell she was bored because there was really no one her age to hang out with in town. We both felt it was natural that we should hang out. Now that I was completely out of high school, she wasn't my teacher, and we were both adults, so why not? I'd like to mention at this point that I was 18 and she had just turned 25. That's how it started. We'd meet up in the early evenings, totally innocent, and go to the movies or to dinner at one of the restaurants in town. Miss Fontaine was cool about letting me slide when it came to paying for our dates because she knew I made minimum wage. Next story. It was actually me who started to push our relationship to the next level after a while. I began holding her hand when we walked places and eventually we kissed. Never in front of anyone, mind you. My parents knew I was sort of dating my former teacher, but since the keyword was former, they didn't raise any concerns. Miss Fontaine would always try to convince me to go to college. She even came to see my band play a few times when we got a rare gig at the roller rink. She was kind enough not to tell us what she really thought. I'm not the kiss and tell type, but my bandmates sort of knew that the dynamic in my relationship with Miss Fontaine had changed. Let's call her Amber from here on out. They seemed okay with it. She kind of made me a better person. I started saving my money for college. The junior college near my house was very affordable, and Amber often mentioned she thought about applying there for work, but really wanted to move to the West Coast or back to the East Coast to teach at a college. Eventually, she told me she'd like me to come with her after a few months. I was in love with Amber, and she was in love with me too. You know, that new relationship puppy love where we couldn't get enough of each other. We didn't flaunt our relationship or show public affection, but we didn't pretend not to know each other either. Amber came to our house, and my parents really liked her. They thought she was a great influence on me. I didn't exactly cut my hair, but I was neater and more presentable. Eventually, I began enrolling in general education classes at the local 2-year college. But then, things went downhill fast. Out of nowhere, Amber was called in for a meeting with the local school board. This is my second-hand account of the situation, as Amber was the one there, not me. There had been reports that she was dating a former student, me, romantically. They accused her of having an inappropriate relationship with a student while I was still in school. Of course, she denied everything, and of course, they believed nothing. She sent me a desperate text, and since ours is a small town, I was at that meeting in literally 10 minutes. I explained that I was in Miss Fontaine's class in 12th grade, that I was her student, and that was all. I told the truth. We reconnected several months after graduation, and only then did we begin dating, when I was well into my 18th year. The board's response was essentially, "Look, son, we appreciate the noble effort you're making to defend your friend's honor, but we're looking for the truth here, not omissions." I insisted I was telling the truth and not covering anything up. After a lot of tears, Amber was simply warned that it wasn't appropriate for a teacher to be seen with students outside of campus, even former students. We assumed that was the end of it. We were really wondering who had complained about us or who would make up stories about us dating while I was still a minor and a student of Amber's. We assumed it was just small-town gossip and that it would blow over. Boy, were we wrong. Over the next several weeks after Amber's meeting with the school board, vicious rumors started to spread about her. I won't insult your imagination. You know what people were saying. One day my boss at the burger joint told me he had to let me go, citing some flimsy excuse about the store losing money and my hairstyle driving away customers. Amber told me it wasn't my fault and promised to support me while I looked for another job. But then, she got fired too. She was working as a probationary teacher, which meant that during her first 2 years she could be fired for any reason or no reason at all. We both knew why she was getting fired, but the district strongly implied it was simply because she was an ineffective teacher. Amber told me that students tended to respond well to her, and she was very popular among them. It was true that she was immensely popular when I was a student, and I assumed the same held true the year after I graduated. Beyond the obvious fact that she was attractive, she was simply a good teacher and a good person. That's why the kids liked her. Many students threatened to protest when she was fired, but being the non-dramatic, non-attention-seeking person she is, Amber asked them to focus on their studies and continue to do well. My dad told her she should get a lawyer to sue the district, but Amber didn't want the drama. Besides, she was allowed to resign, so it wouldn't show up on her record as a firing. The district also promised not to revoke her teaching credential. Next story. Her parents suggested she return to France, but she insisted on staying in America. My parents were supportive and offered to let her move in with us while she figured things out. She was fortunate that her parents were well off and gave her some money to relocate to California. She asked me to come with her, saying she loved me and that we could start a new life there. I'd always wanted to move to California, so I jumped at the chance. My parents were happy I was in a relationship with a good person who clearly cared about me, and they gave us some money too. We got an apartment together in Los Angeles. Neither of us drove, so we both got bikes to get around. Our new area was a world apart from my old life. I immediately enrolled in a local college and got a job as a waiter in a popular French restaurant. Our gimmick was that some of the servers spoke French. Over the previous several months, Amber had taught me a lot of French, so I was a popular server because I added authenticity. Unfortunately for Amber, the school district misled her about her teaching license. While they promised not to revoke it, they failed to mention they would attach an official reprimand accusing her of inappropriate relations with students under her charge. Whenever Amber applied for a teaching job, this came up as a red flag on her application. Another surprise was that schools noticed she was fired from her last job. Everywhere she went, doors slammed shut career-wise. She appealed to the state teaching license organization, but months later nothing came of it. Calls to her former school resulted in her getting the runaround, with no one knowing anything. For the next several months I was paying our day-to-day bills and helping support Amber, though I must acknowledge that the loans from both our parents helped tremendously, and we couldn't have survived without them. Finally, one day, Amber said, "You know what? I'm done trying to teach public school." Then she added, "Oh, OP, I'm pregnant. 2 pieces of good news." Many months later, Amber and I were happily married. The wedding was beautiful in sunny Los Angeles. We now have a son, and I'm close to earning my degree in information technology. We live in a studio apartment, but at least it's a large one, and it's enough for now. Amber stays home with the baby, but also teaches online English and French courses for a private school. Even though she's blacklisted from teaching in the public K-12 system, she can still teach. More months passed and I got my first job in IT, troubleshooting computers for a small company downtown. We moved to a bigger apartment. Amber's making an awesome contribution both as a mother and to our finances with her tutoring. We're planning for her to go back to school for her graduate degree so she can fulfill her dream of teaching college. Oh, and more good news, she's pregnant again. Life is sweet. While everything was going wonderfully, one day I got a text from my mom. She was at a local school board meeting with her neighbors regarding a bill to hire more teachers. Apparently, over the past few years, the population had grown, and the high school needed to expand. Next story. So now, it's a 2-horse town. Mom said that while she was at the meeting, she ran into Jerry's mom. Jerry was my good friend and the bassist in my old band who later quit. My mom had never met Jerry or his mom in a way that connected them to me because I never brought Jerry to our house. He was a bad influence and heavily into substances. So my mom didn't know Jerry's mom, but she overheard her and some other women talking about me and Amber. Mom heard them say that Jerry had been the one to tell everyone about Amber and me supposedly being in an inappropriate relationship while I was in school, and his mom went straight to the school board. Their names as informers were protected under confidentiality. I had lost touch with Jerry over the years and stopped playing music with him long ago. I had no idea he would do such a thing to me. Maybe he resented me for dating Amber. We all had crushes on her. That's the only reason I can think of for him to do this. It's a shame because he used to be a good friend. It was awful that he was behind getting my now wife, the mother of my child and soon-to-be children, fired from her career, single-handedly destroying it. Jerry's mom was a teacher at Amber's former school. It became a running joke that his mom was overly prim and proper, yet her son, a student at her school, was basically the biggest substance dealer in town. I was interested to learn that Jerry's mom was now on the school board. I didn't tell Amber about this right away. I just asked her to tell me what she remembered about Jerry's mom. She said Jerry's mom was always really mean to her and often one of the main instigators in excluding her from teacher social activities. It was one of the main reasons Amber didn't make friends with other teachers. She mentioned that the male teachers were initially nice to her, but the female teachers overwhelmingly despised her before even knowing her. Jerry's mom also started a petition to not renew Amber's contract for the 2nd year at the school. This was the first I'd heard of it. Evidently, only a few teachers signed the petition, but it was placed in Amber's permanent file as evidence that the staff lacked confidence in her. They were basically setting her up to be fired, even though she was doing a good job and the students liked her. I'm more in California than Iowa these days, but I still keep in touch with a few people from school, including Gabe, the drummer from our old band. From what I heard, Jerry now manages the burger joint I used to work at because the old owner retired. I have a social media account but only use it for emergencies. Jerry was still my friend on social media, even though we stopped talking ages ago. I clicked on his profile and then on his friends and family's profiles and recognized his mom, my old history teacher. She was on the school board now and as sanctimonious as ever. I think I mentioned before that I came from a small town where there often isn't much for bored kids to do besides dumb stunts and substances. For the biggest troublemakers, including me, we were foolish enough to record ourselves partying and using substances. That's exactly what my band used to do all the time. Whenever we had a show, we'd record ourselves with our cell phones, rocking out, skating, drinking in vacant lots, and even using large amounts of substances to prove we were young and invincible. We'd also talk to the camera. I hadn't thought about those old recordings in years, but I never erased them from my old phones. I'm the kind of guy who hoards his old cell phones, not because I think they'll increase in value or are particularly interesting, but because I think of them like file cabinets of my past. I don't erase anything. I asked Amber casually if her new job knew about what happened in our old town. She said they did but didn't care. Her employer believed in rehabilitation. So, I checked some of my old videos and found what I needed. I had no trouble finding videos of Jerry heavily under the influence. That was practically every video. In almost every one, Jerry bragged about how his parents knew he was using and dealing substances and wanted to send him to the army to make a man out of him. I found a video where he talked about how his mom knew about his activities and even mentioned coming home to see her using substances at the kitchen table. The video was time-stamped. I thought that would do. I still didn't tell Amber any of this. I asked my mom for the contact info of the people on the town school board. I already knew the school's basic email address, and since I graduated not long ago, most of the administrators were still mid-career at my former high school, and I had their emails. I created a throwaway email account, attached all the relevant videos, and sent them to everyone who mattered in town, all the teachers, administrators, even those from elementary and middle schools. I emailed the church, the pizza place, the burger joint owner, the roller rink boss, you name it. Everyone in town eventually got the files. There were multiple videos where Jerry exposed himself as a heavy substance user and dealer, with his mom having full knowledge of it. He even said multiple times that his parents were okay with it and sometimes joined in. The next day, Amber asked me while feeding our son, "Honey, why are you so happy?" I told her, and she cried out of happiness. Do I even need to say what happened afterward? All this ancient history shouldn't matter, but in a small town, it's devastating. The videos were just of Jerry talking nonsense, and who knows if he was even telling the truth. But it didn't matter because, in a small town, gossip becomes gospel, kind of like how everyone believed Amber and I were in an inappropriate relationship before I turned 18, even though that was completely untrue, and they ran us out of town. My parents endured the fallout of my disgrace when I left years ago with Amber. They made their peace with it, numbed themselves to the slurs, and always stood up for us. They represent what's good about small-town America. In the end, Jerry got fired from his job. The police searched his house, his mom's house since he still lived there, and found a lot of illegal substances. When rumors spread that Jerry's mom had a substance-dealing son, it came out that many kids getting hookups in town were getting them from Jerry. He ended up serving jail time for the large amounts of substances found in the house. His mom was dismissed from her job, along with the appropriate blacklisting that being a substance-abusing fraudulent public official entails. My mom wasn't clear on the details, but there's a good chance Jerry's mom and her husband will face jail time too. It also came out that Jerry's dad had been cheating on his wife for years with women from the church. Jerry's whole family is disgraced. They want to leave town but can't, pending a court case. Until then, they'll just be despised openly. I'll despise them from across the country. It's a small town, everyone knows everyone, or at least their business. Sooner or later, word will slip, and people will drop the "it's confidential" charade and figure out I was responsible for a family's downfall. Jerry, are you listening? If you are, good. Bring it on, bro! These stories evoke a roller coaster of emotions, from frustration to triumphant satisfaction. The donut shop tale with Mary the inspector hits hard. I've worked in high-pressure environments, and I know how soul-crushing it is when someone like Mary targets you for no reason. Her obsession with docking points, especially over navy shoes, reeks of petty power tripping. The taekwondo twist is pure gold. I can't imagine the shock on her face when paired with OP. I love how OP stayed professional yet got sweet revenge by repeatedly flipping her. Mary's eventual retreat from inspections shows karma works subtly. The paternity suit prank is hilariously diabolical. I'm all for pranks, but this one's nuclear. Crafting 25 pages of fake legal docs and serving them during a busy bar shift is next-level commitment. I laughed imagining Mike's panic, though I felt bad for his mom's meltdown over the Irish granddaughter. It's a reminder to keep prank wars short, as collateral damage can sting. The clown prank story is intense. I get the cousin's panic over her abusive uncle. Family dynamics like that are brutal. The clown chase was savage, but I see why OP went there. It mirrors the cousin's cruel prank. I hope they talked it out, as fear-based pranks can fracture trust. Still, the poetic justice of using her clown phobia is undeniable. Amber's small-town saga is heartbreaking yet uplifting. I've seen gossip destroy lives in tight-knit communities, and Jerry's betrayal stings. The false rumors about Amber's relationship with OP are infuriating, especially costing her career. I admire their resilience, moving to LA, building a family, and thriving despite setbacks. OP's revenge, exposing Jerry's substance dealing via old videos, is a masterstroke. It's poetic that Jerry's family faced disgrace, mirroring the pain they inflicted. Small towns amplify gossip, and OP flipped the script brilliantly. These stories show how malicious compliance can turn the tables with precision. Guys, this was a fantastic revenge story, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. That brings us to the end of another Pro Revenge episode. If you missed the last episode, check it out. I'll see